Let's talk a little bit about image manipulation, including the different selection methods that Adobe Photoshop has. So there are really great advances happening right now with Photoshop, including AI. But I wanted to step you through a couple of ways that selections can occur, specifically looking at selections that are a little bit more tricky. So there are a few ways to get selections like this, where there are furry or hairy selections. So let's start with this image of the llama. So if we wanted to select the llama, there are a couple ways that we could do it. Now, one of the older methods, and probably a very simple method, is an object selection tool. This allows us to click and drag, and I can increase my brush size by using a square bracket tool to increase and grab. But what happens is that we end up with either a halo or a smoothed head because it cannot select the hair. Okay, so this method much better for objects that have a smooth edge. I'm going to Control or Command D to deselect. The next method is an object selection tool. Again, this one is kind of cool because it will allow us to click on an object and it tries to define where the subject is. So I could just click like I did and I get this sort of masked area to indicate where the selection will occur. Or I could click and drag around the object and it will think and then again try to find that outside edge. Again, with hair, a little bit more tricky. Control D, Command D. With any of the selection tools, including the marquee tools, lasso tools, or these quick selection options, we also have at the top a button called Select Subject. And this is a way that AI is being used. Photoshop is trying to logically look at the picture and say, I believe this to be the subject area. Super fast, super quick way to at least get a start on a selection. So same as kind of those other tools that I just showed you, but you're not defining anything. Photoshop is trying to define it for you. And then we have Select and Mask. And this is sort of the second step of getting a selection. So let's go back and do a Select Subject here. All right, so it's trying to guess. Again, the hair gets a little bit tricky. With any of the selection tools, including the lasso tool or quick selection tool, I can use keyboard commands of plus to add to or option to delete. And you notice that I have the toggles up here to make a new selection, add to a current selection, delete from a current selection. So with this selection, I'm going to refine it a bit, and that's where the Select and Mask comes into play. So Select and Mask, and here's a preview. Now we have some options of how we'd like to preview this. You can do the preview of on white, of on black, that lets us really see the halos, and I guess it really depends on where your intended placement will be. If it's going to be on a darker background or a lighter background, those might be helpful. You can also just do a black and white and see the harsh edge of where that selection is going to occur, or on layers where you see that transparency in the background. So I'll just do this on black because I think that I can see a little bit better with this method. And so what we can do, and we can play with the opacity also of how black that is. I have it down just a smidge so I can see a little bit of some texture in the background. All right, so what we want to do is use the second tool down here, the Refine Edge Brush tool. This is a wonderful tool to just quickly go around the edges of those areas and really refine it. So by clicking, and you can go with as big or as little of a brush as you want. If I go much larger, you can just see it kind of fades it out. And so I'll end up with some hairs that aren't really connected. It's really looking at the pixels. If I zoom in here, do a smaller brush, you can see it's just taken away, and it's doing some kind of really cool editing, that it's removing some areas, adding some areas of what it thinks should be to make this edge appear to be fuzzy, so it's not just a harsh edge. So very quickly, I'll just cruise around here, and you can either do a single click or you can click and drag. Something's up here. All right, so let's just see what that does. So you can use this Refine Edge brush tool. Like I said, it looks great on hair. On the bottom here, there are more options, but if we look at the output settings, what we want to do is select the decontaminate colors. We want that as an option. And then we can choose how we would like this output. And I choose to do a new layer with a layer mask. That gives me, again, flexibility where I can go back and edit the selection if I need to. So new layer with layer mask. I click OK. Here's the new layer, here's the layer mask, here's my selection. So you can see what a good job it does. I can go back and I can do some editing again. I can paint on my mask. Remember, the white is the visible, the black is the invisible. So I can just paint with the paintbrush, white or black, on this mask, and I can do some edits as well. So pretty cool way to select. Like I said, Photoshop is getting smarter and smarter all the time and able to do these selections.